Well, you got two pure grade A mass holes here. Welcome to Crazy Pinfalls. What's up, Ed? How you doing?
Not bad, and you?
One crazy day after the other. You know, kind of everything rolls into each other eventually.
Oh yeah, and then
But
you have what is it? Murphy's Law. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong.
oh, it does. Hey, we got Kevin coming through. Cool. Um, speaking of Kev, what's up, Kev? How you doing? But at least your internet's on tech tonight.
Yeah, it's good so far. We'll see in a minute or two.
Yeah. So change this up. So this has been one crazy week in wrestling in general. It's been insane how all this stuff WWE seeming right now is they're positioning themselves not for the next two pay-per-views, but they're positioning themselves for Survivor Series and Crown Jewel right now. I mean, do you guys see them doing the right moves right now between what we saw on Raw compared to and SmackDown compared to what they're looking at going forward? I mean, what are your expectations, especially with the pay-per-view on Sunday?
I mean, considering the pay-per-view has no Extreme Rules matches and it's called Extreme Rules, my hopes aren't very high.
I mean, yeah, I think Extreme Rules fell in a bad time for them this year where they've plopped themselves in a moment where they need to push the product for the next two shows that they want to push. And by no means are they pushing bad matches, but you have a very potentially uneventful Demon versus Roman matchup that is going to be kind of thrown by the wayside because of the fact that you're going to have a non-finish to get to Roman versus Brock. Unless you do the absolute crazy balls out misdecision and you put the title on Finn and you let Finn run with the title and you make Brock versus Roman just a grudge match, which I'm all in favor of. And I think there's a bigger chance of that than people are giving it credit for, that Vince may go balls to the wall for the next couple months and just let Finn take the title.
I mean, it would be an interesting idea because wouldn't it strengthen Finn in general just because of the fact that that demon character has not been beaten at all yet? And I asked this to JPJ, go check out the Extreme Rules pay-per-view special that we did for predictions for the tournament, which he's facing Fightful's own and Fight Talk Steven Jensen. Excuse me. Think about, like, I was just basically asking him, like, what is his expectations? And he said it's one of those things that's just, you know, it just didn't seem up to par. And I agree with it. But with Balor, though, I expect a lot more than if they do it right. If they put the title on Finn, yeah, let Roman chase after him until Survivor Series. You get two pay-per-views out of it. Let him win before Crown Jewel. There's your Brock match, and then you set up the Survivor Series match. So, I mean, it should be interesting to see how things go. But that Bloodline match, if they're going to pull that as a trigger for Survivor Series, God, I'm in for that. New Day versus the Bloodline. Give me that. What's one match you guys are looking forward to on this card? Because this card's kind of a moving part card compared to where it's basically solid, stationary. That's how the card's going to be.
Give me the Usos versus the Street Profits, man. That's a match I've been dying to see since the Street Profits moved to Friday nights. Like, this is going to be the New Day versus the Usos, the beginning of that all over again. These teams are capable of magic in the ring. And a heel Usos versus a face Street Profits is going to be fun.
Yeah, I know. It's going to be like one of those knock 'em, drag down matches. What do you think about on this card, Kev, that makes everything a lot better?
Honestly, after Monday, I'm looking forward to the Sheamus,
pretty good.
Damian Priest, Jeff Hardy match. It's more exciting with adding Jeff Hardy because you just know he's going to get the shit kicked out of him.
I mean, I'm looking at this card. I just pulled it up just to make sure I knew all the matches on it. It's a solid card. Like Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair, Jeff Hardy and Damian Priest and Sheamus, Charlotte and Alexa Bliss, Roman and Finn, the Usos and the Street Profits, Liv Morgan and Carmella. We're more than likely going to see Bobby Lashley versus Big E. And you're probably going to see something with Randy Orton and Matt Riddle versus somebody for the tag titles, considering that match got scrapped when they made the change to Big E for the world title. So, I mean, it's a quality card for a show that people are kind of, not giving the time of day. And by the way, there is one Extreme Rules match on the card. It is Roman versus Finn.
Well, I mean, if there's one other match that they could add to it that they're hinting at, So, I mean, do you think that match is going to happen, Edge and Seth?
I don't. If I'm them, I hold off till SummerSlam or Saudi with that match. You've got Edge for Saudi. You might as well use him, and there's no better place than putting him on that show with Seth Rollins.
Well, I mean, if they do it at the Saudi pay-per-view, wouldn't it make more sense for them to do something like, have them tease more or something and just have Seth face somebody in between? And who is that opponent? I mean, you've got after Extreme Rules, we're going in October, so you have Crown Jewel and then another match, another pay-per-view right there before Survivor Series. You've got 3 pay-per-views within about 2 months, and it's an insane schedule that they do. But it's WWE for you.
Is there a show in October other than Crown Jewel?
Yeah, they usually do one regular pay-per-view and then Crown Jewel.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if they're just going to do Crown Jewel this year because they know that they're building to Survivor Series.
If I would hope
that's the route I'm hoping they take.
Yeah, well, we'll see about it. I mean, even with everything going on right now in this world, I wouldn't be surprised if they decide to pull another one. Do you think there'll be like 3 pay-per-views, Kev, or between now and then, or what are your expectations for these?
Knowing the schedule they keep, probably there shouldn't be, but yeah, they like to pack them in there, and it's dumb because you just end up getting these people that get bumped and bruises, and we have people like NXT isn't even keeping a rough schedule, and they're getting people hurt left and right. WWE needs to slow it down, I think. Let some people get some time off in some of these weekends with live events back now.
Well, that's going to be more difficult for them to do just because of the fact that if they keep that schedule the same way, and by the way, hey, Spencer, it's just, it's going to be fun to see how things are going to go, because eventually what will happen is he just had to go do something real quick. They're going to end up breaking down physically a little bit because of the fact that with live people coming back, they're going to end up wanting to push the envelope a little more. And it seems like they're doing that in WWE compared to AEW. But oh my God, AEW knocked it out of the park. It literally just hit a home run last night. And I've actually asked Drew Nicholas, Big Money Drew, who's been on the show multiple times over the last year, how it felt. I'll read it out, and I'm going to quote him on this. It was surreal in the best word to sum it up. Getting to see all those people I saw for the first time ever at the price I paid was a steal. If from what I can tell, it gave that presence like the old Garden, where it was just like everybody was on top of each other, and it just felt so much fun and relaxing. And I really wish I could go to one of those shows, but unfortunately with epilepsy, you kind of can't. Yeah. What was your expectations of the AEW show if you got some of the notions and the highlights and stuff like that? What were you expecting going in?
I mean, I was expecting a killer knockout show. They booked it that way. They booked a pay-per-view show on live free television. Rampage is being booked the same way. AEW is putting out killer shows. My And I love it because it's great for the fans who enjoy it, and it's great for the wrestling world as a whole to have to have a place to go and to just enjoy watching a wrestling show again. It's one of the best things in the world. I'm not as big an AEW fan as some of the other people. I have my grips and my gripes with AEW going back to they sat in Jacksonville and they had a press conference where they said, this is what AEW is going to be. And they haven't hit a lot of those goals in the last 2 years. And they're really lacking on some of them that they were like, this is a pride point of pride for us. And I'm like, you've got the best tag team wrestlers in the world, but your tag team division doesn't feel like it on television all the time. They touted about having the women being the main stars and being equal to the men. And last night they got the equal billing where they were the main event. But if you think that Britt Baker and Ruby Soho are treated in the same light as Omega and Bryan and the Bucks and
It's not really
Adam
the
Cole,
same.
it can't be the same. And they've got to build a way to get more focus on the women's division on television because they're doing a great job of it on the internet. But like I tell people, when we talk about it with WWE, if I can't count main event as putting people on television and telling stories, then I'm not going to count AEW Dark and I'm not going to count Dark Elevation because it's essentially the same platform. That being said, they killed it last night. The feeling in that arena, like watching I watched two matches. I watched the main event and I watched the opening match, and I watched them in their entirety. It felt like Rock Hogan. Like that's the level of build that match felt like when they were just walking around, getting ready to get into, the first, collar and elbow tie up. It felt Rock Hogan-esque.
It from the way getting some, because I watched some of the highlights because stuff happened last night that I was going through. Just stuff outside of this place. Obviously, stuff happens in life, but I think for me, it gave me that feeling of, you said Rock Hogan. It gave me even a further back feeling. It felt like it was like Hogan Warrior a little bit, where it's like that build up, that major build up for a short period, for a good amount of time. And it pays off. It sucked because it was a draw, but the bigger payoff could happen at Full Gear. And that would be interesting to see because Full Gear's in Minnesota, by the way. Yeah. There you go, Rob.
My bigger question about AEW and where they go from here. Paige asked for time off because his wife is expecting and they're having their first child. I'm not sure if it's happened yet or not. I haven't seen anything. That being said, you've built for the first 2 years of this company that Hangman Page is going to take this title off of Kenny Omega. What do you do with Hangman Page when he comes back if you put the title on Bryan Danielson?
I think Kev, you could put your 2 cents in on this. I think if they bring Page back, I think you could throw a triple threat into that because Omega is going to go, like I said, and I mean this about Roman, and it's the same way with Omega. If one of them doesn't have a title and they build themselves up to be this, let them be the person who's panicking without it and chasing after it. And I think if they do this right and they build this up right, and they bring Page back, it pays off Page wanting to go after Omega, and it gives Bryan a fresh opponent going off. Let's say they do this at Full Gear, gives it a fresh opinion pass on that, because you get Omega out of the picture, because then he'll probably face Cole, right? Let's just play it that way. Then you've got Page versus Bryan, which a lot of people would love to see. You're basically getting the best of all three. You're setting up a new feud two new feuds while they're intertwining a payoff on an old, and trying to give Omega and Page that match, that singles match. But putting Bryan in could tear it into 2 different feuds with Cole inserting himself against Omega. That's fantasy a little bit, but it could happen.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm just worried about you've spent all this time making Page a star that everybody wants to see that title on. And I just worry that you've done it all for naught if you decide to short term pull the title off of Kenny and put it on Bryan.
I mean, but do you really look at it, Kev? Is that if they basically shortchange Page, do you think that the bigger payoff with Bryan will bring more eyes? Because Omega is godly on his own. But do you see like Page being a part of it, setting up a feud for Bryan, important that they look long term? Or
yeah, I think, and that's something AEW is very good at, is looking long term. I'm sure we might know when Page is coming back, but they probably do, and they probably already do know what they want to do with him. I like the idea of the triple threat, but at the same time, I really want to see a clean finish for Omega Danielson before that. So if you do switch the title, you can still have Page win the triple threat by pinning Omega, not Danielson.
and it still leads all three of them strong. It just it makes Omega seem sympathetic for losing the title, and not weak, but he wins because of the fact that he gets that validation of doing what he does. Like, he's good at what he does. That's not a question. It's just, it finishes that feud with Page that they tried setting up. It gives a payoff for Bryan to make Bryan look a lot more strong. And it keeps Omega strong because of the fact that Bryan didn't pin him. So Omega later on, if he gets that title back, can say that Bryan never did it, pin him for a chance for it. So they can do something at Double or Nothing to build that up. There's multiple ways of doing it. It's just, it all depends on how they're going to do it.
Yeah, I just don't want Hangman to get left behind. That's my only thing.
They could also make Danielson and Omega stay very far away from each other now after that match for a little while, and have it be Page coming back next week in Rochester, New York, where Brody's from, and settle out everything with the Dark Order. So now he has them backing him to take care of the Elite, and you can still do the match one-on-one, Omega versus Page, and Bryan Danielson just comes back a little later on.
Yeah, that's true too. So like I said, there's possibilities, but that match, oh my God. And they hit it on the nail. If Bryan had an extra 2 seconds, he would have won. But time ran out and it was a draw. But that last few seconds with, Bucks and Cole freaking super kicking them, all three of them, I kind of cringed on that. That Tiger suplex where Bryan flipped. Thank God he overdid that and landed on his stomach. Oh, imagine if he hit his head just right on that. So, I mean, it's going to be one crazy thing. So, I tried catching your show Saturday, Ed, but what are your thoughts on NXT 2.0 as of right now after seeing the second show?
I love it. It's a lot of, we make the running joke, it's unknown wrestler number 1525. But that being said, this is what NXT used to be. I mean, we're going back to the glory days of NXT on the network in its 1 hour format, where it's a whole bunch of stuff going on and you're showcasing a lot of younger talent and trying to get them over. Is Braun Breaker's name a good name? No.
Hell no.
Like Braun Breaker with 1K, I could deal with. 2Ks, it's a little overkill. I don't understand the reason. That being said, they've positioned him in a position of power. He looks the part. He can talk the part. He looks like his dad. He wrestles like his dad, and he talks like his uncle. That's the best of both worlds as far as I'm concerned. This dude is a potential star. There's no reason not to push him straight to the moon and have him take a real bad early defeat from Tommaso Ciampa. And then he can cycle back in with everybody else, and it'll be fine. But this dude is definitely legit, and it's definitely going to give him a huge benefit to put him in this match. That opening promo on this week's NXT, when they had Ciampa come out and talk about how all these new guys are NXT, and he had essentially the 7 pillars of NXT going forward with Jensen and Briggs, with Joe Gacy, with Odyssey Jones, with Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams, and with Braun Breaker. It was a nice little moment where everybody got to have something to say or have a stare down with a veteran. to set up these great newcomers versus veteran feuds to give these guys legitimacy. Carmelo Hayes walking around, as we know him, Christian Casanova, walking around being the humble babyface heel, with Trick Williams being the complete heel behind him, is just fantastic. And that contract is going to come into play. And while I hope he does it to cash in on Ciampa at some point, I mean, the match that I want to see as a wrestling match from them would be him versus Swerve versus Escobar. Because that match is going to be 5 stars in my mind. Because there's no way that match there's no way that match under delivers with those 3 guys in the ring.
I mean, for me, if Carmelo ever pulls the trigger on that, I could just see him going at with Ciampa, like you said. But I honestly think if they're smart enough to do anything, which is WWE, they're kind of not, depending on who's running it. That I have to laugh, but Braun Breaker. I mean, if the thing is that if they're gonna push him, as Grimes says, to the moon, they're probably gonna push him at the North American title for a little bit, because it seems like whoever has that title, with the exception of Bronson Reed, usually gets a shot at the NXT championship at some point. I mean, every NXT champion at one point, I think except for Ciampa, has had that title in their grasp at some point, especially minus Joe, who whenever he comes back, I hope he comes back 100%. And Joe is one of the most talented people on here. I think that in order to get him ease into it, whoever has that North American title, that he'll end up being the one carrying that title for a little while, just to, get him back ease into it. And then he goes back for the NXT to be the 4-time NXT champion. And that would be sick. What are your thoughts on the new NXT 2.0 with 2 shows in the can right now, Kev?
I haven't actually gotten a chance to watch it all. I'm reading a little bit of online, and it seems like they're throwing a lot of people out there to see how they do, sink or swim, if you will. Just Braun Breaker, so far, he's staying afloat. We'll see what happens when he does take that first big loss, or when he's in his first high-profile match with Ciampa. But from the clips I'm seeing online, he looks really freaking good already for what? This is only his second match ever or something like that, right?
And
that's
NXT
incredible.
Is, yeah.
Yeah. No, ever, because he didn't wrestle before NXT signed him.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure he's yeah, you're right. I wasn't sure much on Rex Steiner and what his deal was beforehand.
Well, I mean, with that lineage, I mean, it's the same thing with The Rock. I mean, his dad was a wrestler, his grandfather was a wrestler. Like, this guy Rex has got his uncle and his dad as wrestlers. I mean, just, it's the same thing, but not all families work out. I mean, look at Noelle Foley. I love Mick Foley, but that didn't work out. She wanted to be a women's wrestler, and that didn't work out in the training and stuff. I mean, some families don't work.
Simone's already hurt.
Yeah, so I mean, some of this stuff doesn't work out. There's so many wrestling families out there, but it just doesn't mix. I mean, there's very few occasions. I mean, the Samoan dynasty, that's worked out. I mean, they just signed one of the Usos brothers. So, I mean, that's going to be an interesting thing when eventually he gets ready. And Roman and the Usos are still around a little bit kicking. I mean, it's just going to be fun to see where they go from here. Now, for me, I think Imperium is going to be a key cog in all this. I think Imperium, since they're doing the shift over for some of their major talent to the US side of it, they, like I said, Imperium's already here. They've had Walter over here for a little bit for tapings. And then you also have Kaylee Ray on NXT TV full time now. I think the possibility is that Raquel's going to end up losing that title at some point. I think Kaylee Ray is going to be the next one to carry that title for a long period of time. I mean, with the experience she had with the UK title, and everybody's like, well, like you said, Ed, you can't count Dark and Dark Elevation as, you know, part of their product to watch if it's not considered television. Well, to me, UK is considered television and I watch it. So, I mean, I'm probably the very few people that do. But it's still, to me, her having that title, even during this time frame with COVID for a whole year when that it was promotion was off and on shut down, and still carrying that title and saying she would rep it anywhere, that takes balls. And I could see her being the NXT champion. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, she's one of the best female wrestlers in the world. Sorry, Kevin, you wanted to go?
No, I mean, I'm just going to say that they could always just throw a curveball and Frankie could win on Tuesday. She's TV ready.
Yeah.
I would love to see it as Kaylee Ray. She's amazing. And like you were going to say, she's one of the best female wrestlers in the world. But Vince does crazy things. And right now he has a little bit more say with Triple H at home healing up. So
I think Hunter has some say in a distance, but I think the mouthpiece there in NXT right now is Sean. And I think Hunter's directing the majority of this stuff for during the week and while he's recovering, but Sean's the one who's like, okay, I know Hunter wants it this way, and they're going through A, B, C, and D, and they're working their way through it, which is great because of the fact that it gives a fresh outlook on there, gives a different perspective on everything, and it makes a better show. The first NXT show, I was kind of like, okay, let's see how this goes. Let's see how everything pans out. And it was really entertaining. I've always loved NXT shows, but I was like more into it. And then this one, I was even more interested. Now, I'm curious to see if this trend progresses because the numbers, like the old saying goes, the numbers don't lie. And the ratings, as much as they don't care about it, they kind of have to with those contracts. They have to care about what USA looks at them because those contracts come up very soon in about 2 years, I believe. So like a year or two from now. So if they want to keep being this partnership and having USA have two of their shows while Fox has got the main, and let's be honest, money-wise, Fox's that SmackDown show is the number one show for WWE money-wise. Mm-hmm. It's just that's why they're stacking majority of those major chips on Fox right now compared to, you know, Raw. That's why I just looked at it objectively, seeing that the product of Raw is actually deteriorating. Do you guys also see that shift too? Like Raw, the majority of their major stars are going over to SmackDown a lot more compared to where Raw was just like, it's almost like an afterthought.
I think at this point, it's funny. I think at this point, we have to just be in a wait and see attitude, which sucks for WWE, but the draft's coming up soon. And then they want us to believe that everyone cares about the brand that just got drafted to a month later, but that's neither here nor there. I do think you're going to see SmackDown a little heavier loaded. The problem is Raw needs more star power because it's 3 hours. And they don't have enough people waiting in the wings like AEW does. AEW has 10 guys that are TV ready just sitting there waiting. WWE doesn't have that because of the way they book their shows. So if they're really going to shift everything to SmackDown because it is the A show, Raw is going to become almost unwatchable again, and this week was awesome.
Yeah, I was going to say, this week's Raw was great. I think we're going to see a big change in the way things happen going forward because USA is sick and tired of playing second fiddle. I've heard it put this way by a couple of people who have sources within the networks. Fox's needs are met with when Fox comes to WWE and says, hey, we kind of want this, aka getting Roman Reigns, aka having Becky on SmackDown, having that Roman versus Ray Hell in the Cell match the 2 days before the Hell in the Cell pay-per-view. Those are all things Fox kind of asked for and got. And now we're looking at Raw, and Raw was like, well, you did this for them. Why don't we get things? So Raw is being met reactively to whatever's happening on SmackDown. I think we're going to see a big change come the draft. I think Roman, I think the Bloodline are all going over to Raw. I think Becky and Seth stay on SmackDown. I think Drew's going to SmackDown. I think you're going to look at Randy or AJ's headed to SmackDown, which means Riddle's probably headed to SmackDown if Randy is. You're going to see a big change in the top of the divisions where Raw's getting a lot of top-end star power because USA is sick and tired of it. Because we got to remember, with USA's deals, not only are they getting Raw and NXT, but they're the same people who are paying them $2 billion a year, essentially, for the network to be on Peacock. That NBC Universal deal, that's the bigger deal to them than the TV night rights deal, is the fact that they paid all that money to have the network on Peacock. They are not going to risk USA being too mad for too long, even with dealing with Fox, because they're going to need to, if they're going to resell that deal in 3 or 4 years, that they're going to need to have somebody to be willing to buy that network again.
Yeah, and the Peacock is all that owned by the network rights are owned by the same company that owns USA. I mean,
Universal.
Yeah, and it's just they have to do something to actually improve it, and I'm hoping Raw gets a lot better. I like this type of watching Raw this time around. That main event was pretty good too, but they're also in a conundrum with this draft now with the pay-per-view itself. We're literally coming about what is it? It's going in Friday almost, so about 72 hours, let's say, would be literally getting into the beginning of maybe the first match halfway through or so. I could honestly see them putting Alexa over Charlotte, which everybody calls me freaking insane for saying that, but it's about time. And I said this to JPJ the other day. It makes more sense to move Charlotte to SmackDown, get her away from the SmackDown title. You have a really good roster over there with, and I know I'm going to get slack for this, but you have Alexa who can run that. You have a story with her and Nikki right there for a title match, just for a push because of their history. I mean, you're going to bring up Raquel. So there you go. There's a women's tag team you could have with you split, Rhea and Nikki apart, and you could stack it up with more people that are not being used on SmackDown and put them on Raw and build a strong roster in there and have Alexa ahead of it. And then you give Fox what they want. They want star power. So you give them Charlotte, and then you have all 4 horsewomen back with Bayley whenever she gets back, and then let them feud. And there's your Mania match going into the next year. So, I mean, depending on Bayley's time frame of her return, but it would make perfect sense for that. I mean, what's the one, do you think Alexa should get this title now, this moment, or do you think it's another time waiting for her? Because she's been waiting for a while.
If it's me, I love Alexa Bliss, but I would wait. I think Vince's ear is leery to pull the trigger on Alexa with all the concussion things. He's seeing what's happening with Joe, and he's been leery on Alexa since she came back from all the concussion issues after the Ronda stuff, to put any gold on her whatsoever other than the tag team titles. I don't mind the idea of moving her over because I think Raw is going to get an influx from NXT. You said Raquel, but I also think Io Shirai is coming up and going to Raw. I think Dakota Kai is coming up and going to Raw. I think Ember Moon is coming up and going to Raw. So I wouldn't mind moving Charlotte to SmackDown with the title, and then bringing over Bianca with her title and flip-flopping the 2 title divisions, because I think Bianca takes down Becky at Extreme Rules.
I think Becky keeps the title. What do you think, Kev?
Oh, Becky keeps the title. But I think you could have Alexa win and then Charlotte win it right back. That's what they love to do with Charlotte, because they're trying to rack up those title wins, and they might try to do it faster now so that a different first name comes before Flair, who's ever had the most title reigns in WWE. It's something that Vince is definitely going to start thinking about. I also think we see Cena come back and win a title so that he gets to 17 and it's not just tied with Flair.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know Cena loves Rick, and I know he's always said that he never wants to win it. But with everything that's come out recently, I think there's a very good chance that Cena gets a legacy title reign for the world title at some point in the near future, and it's going to ruin things depending on who that champion is. Like that champion better be bulletproof that you take the title off of with him. Like if they do it to say Finn or Big E, that's going to be absolutely monumentally looked at as the biggest bad decision that they've ever made with Sean. And that's saying something because they've made some monumentally bad decisions, including the Nexus. So,
Well,
but
here's a thought on that. You have him take it off Roman because The Rock showed up and distracted Roman, setting up Brock Roman that does not need that title belt.
yeah, like I said, Roman's bulletproof. That's why I say if the champion's bulletproof, you're fine. You can get away with having John beat him. So if it's Roman, if it's Brock, if it's somebody like that, you can get away with having Cena get one more championship reign. Hell, you could even do it with Goldberg.
Oh
Like
boy, don't say that name,
if for
please.
some reason that man wins another title, and Lord knows his next match will be a championship match because for some reason they all are lately.
I don't know. I think he's going to face Lashley again when he comes back after Lashley attacked his son.
I would love that, by the way. A non-title match between him and Lashley at Saudi Arabia.
Just whipping each other's asses.
Make it a strap match. Make it a strap match. I'd be good down for that.
Would not be bad with those two.
No, and especially with the arsenal they both have, it would just be one of those brutal matches where both of them just go at each other. I mean,
it's a match where Goldberg doesn't have to wrestle. He can kind of fight. He can be dirty and kind of just grungy and, just do the Goldberg stuff that Goldberg does well. And you can go 10, 15 minutes in a strap match with Goldberg and Lashley in that realm. And Goldberg won't have that Undertaker type moment where he tried to wrestle for 15, 20 minutes and it almost cost Undertaker his career.
Or his life in general. Like,
yeah.
Don't get Goldberg because literally it's just Oldberg all over again. I honestly think that if they do anything major, especially with the Saudi show going on, and we don't know if they're going to do a women's match like they did the last couple of years.
Rumor is the Queen of the Ring finals is happening there.
That's what I was going to say.
Well, it's going to be fun because, what they should put with that Queen of the Ring stipulation is that the winner gets a title shot too. And that would make it more stakes. I mean, we have this belt here that's sitting next to me, and there's still going to be stakes in these matches. I think Alexa takes it. I think Alexa pushes the Raw brand a lot higher. And like what Danielson said, that Vince almost seemed like he was kid gloving him and being very protective. And I think he's doing that with the majority of the talent that has had head injuries or head trauma or neck trauma. And it's kind of sad that they're doing that because they should just let them loose. If they're 100% cleared through another doctor or anything that's not WWE doctor, and it's just another option, why don't you just get those opinions and stuff like that? I'm one person who should be talking about it because with the epilepsy and getting a trash can dropped on my head, but still,
The one thing I think where you have to give Vince credit, the benefit of the doubt when it comes to how he's like as Brian says, kid gloves with these injuries and stuff, is look at what happened to Samoa Joe. Samoa Joe got released because he wanted to wrestle in the ring, and the main roster doctors were like, "No, we don't want to do it." Triple H comes to him and says, "Here, come with us to NXT, work for us and all kinds of developmental stuff, and we'll go ahead and we'll try to get you cleared so you can get you in the ring." Joe gets in the ring, has one match where he doesn't even take a nasty fall on his head. He gave the nasty fall onto Cross's head, and now all of a sudden Joe's back on the injured list, most likely, and this is me playing medical doctor with no medical degree, probably concussion related. And Joe's back on the shelf again.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, though. I mean, even though you're being protective, it has to go by case. So, I mean, look at Edge. Took 9 years off of his career, and he's now wrestling or what the quote would be, like he's living his best life right now in his professional life as, a performer in general. Speaking of performers, Punk last night saying professional wrestling. I was listening to this and it's out in my thought, and we'll go back to WWE stuff in a second. It's kind of a dig at WWE when they say this now. It's like, it's not like, oh, you're being subtle about it. No, your tone and stuff like that, you're being aggressive and pointing it out that it's not sports entertainment. It's one of those things. It's like you dig with one of your friends. So Kev, what do you think about all these promos and stuff like that, pointing that out, like literally digging at WWE?
I mean, it's only a dig because WWE has made a point of saying we aren't professional wrestling. Like, that's Vince's big thing. We're sports entertainment. This isn't professional wrestling anymore to him. It's about the story. It's not about the wrestling anymore there. So it's a fair dig when they themselves are saying we aren't professional wrestling. I think it's fair game. I don't think anyone stepped over the line with any of the shots they've laid at WWE. They've all been accurate, and some of them self-professed.
Well, I mean, it's a big roster over there on AEW now, so it's just, it's like the 04 Red Sox with all that talent for the World Series right there. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, it's like the Pats and all that stuff up in New England. AEW is the place to be right now, and I don't blame any of these guys for doing it. So, I mean, who do you see going next, going from WWE to AEW eventually? And then we'll keep going about, we'll talk about more about Extreme Rules.
This guy right here. Fight Owens fight. He's going back to Fight Steam Fight because he's already said he won't go back to Kill because he wants his kids to be able to watch the product and watch his matches.
I mean, I really think there's a chance Buddy Murphy ends up there after he's done with his run in Impact. I think that there's a spot for him there if he doesn't end up doing a lot of stuff with New Japan. Bray Wyatt is an interesting name just because of the creative control that they let them have there. Bray could tell some interesting creative stories, but I don't know if he'd be fulfilled wrestling wise because everybody would be waiting just to see when he joins the Dark Order or has something to do with the Dark Order. And I think that does Brody a major disservice if that's what you do. So, but what about Big Damo? Big Damo's a free agent come tomorrow. I mean, I could see that guy doing big things over there. Great talent, super well liked in the locker room, is different than a lot of the talent they have there when it comes to big guy can kind of move, can cut a promo, fits in with guys like Pac and things like that. Like, I'm not with Pac with the Lucha Bros, but Pac in general. Like, I could see him playing a bodyguard badass to Pac and being an interesting little figure there. So I'd say Big Damo might be the next one.
It's going to be fun to see how all this pans out. So getting back to Extreme Rules, like I said, because we're bouncing around and stuff like that. So Roman versus Finn. Who do you guys got?
I think it's Roman, and that makes me sad because the Demon should never lose. But I think it's going to be Roman.
I almost guarantee it'll be Roman, but I'm going to go with my heart on this one and say that they pulled the trigger on the crazy story and they let the Demon win.
I think it's going to be a no DQ. I really do. I think that they're going to end up giving, they're going to give the match up, have a no DQ, and then try to run it back if there is a second pay-per-view next month other than Crown Jewel. And
there is nothing listed.
There isn't?
There's nothing.
Wow.
As of Wikipedia right now, there's only 4 shows left for the year, and it's Extreme Rules, Crown Jewel, Survivor Series, and TLC.
Wow. Last year they ran it back real good with Payback. But if they do it right, then you have another match for TLC with Finn at the end with the DQ, and you could just kind of like the Danielson Omega thing. You could say that, you didn't beat me. I didn't beat you. So, and then that would be TLC going into the following year. I'm just hoping that they do something with these guys.
I have an interesting out for them with this one. Since the match is an Extreme Rules match, what if Brock comes down, beats up both guys, and then puts the Demon on top of Roman?
That could be an interesting thing.
So then Finn gets
That
the
would be
title.
interesting.
Finn gets the title, so you get yourself out of that. You have a reason for the grudge match between Roman and Brock's decided he doesn't want the title. He just wants to beat up Roman. So you've told all those stories. Roman can have something at Crown Jewel. Roman can do, he can have something at Survivor Series because Roman's going to be booked with the Bloodline versus the New Day. And then you can go to TLC and put the title back on Roman at TLC. So that you can go ahead and book Rock versus Roman at Mania.
Yeah, that would actually work out because that would make more sense. Plus, it'd be a lot of fun to watch these two just go at it without a title for once, because every time they've met, the title was on the line, and especially the way it used to be. Now it's, you don't need that title just to.
And Roman's also at the point that facing Roman is just as big as going for that title. He doesn't need the title anymore, but there just really hasn't been anyone there to take it from him that would have that same star power. And I think Finn could do that as long as they let him stay NXT Finn with the Demon as well.
That little more, like Nas in the tank kind of idea where you just push it into
the more British strong.
I love internet issues a little bit.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's ways that they can get out of this where if they decide to pull the title off Roman, there are ways that you can get it back on Roman without making anybody look bad. You can give Finn a really nice couple months reign with this title going into TLC, Royal Rumble, either one, and then going ahead and just because basically, like you guys said, Roman doesn't need the title, but Finn could use a nice title run. And imagine Finn versus Seth at Survivor Series. If you finish with Edge and Seth at Crown Jewel, Seth versus Finn again one more time with a title on the line at a major pay-per-view.
Yeah, that would be pretty sick. I'm just wanting Finn to get the actual Universal title run that he absolutely deserves after being the first one and only having it for less than 24 hours, So we've got, that match, hopefully.
Uh-oh.
Did we lose him? We lost him.
Happened.
I think we lost. Oh, there he is. He's back again.
Oh, there he's back.
Yeah. I don't know what's up with the internet today. It's like saying poor connection on here, but I just upgraded the thing. You got to love Comcast if you're out from where me and Ed are.
Oh, yeah.
So, but do you think that match with Edge and Seth actually happens? And, do you think that an E. Lashley match happens also? Do you think they stack the card a little bit more?
E. Lashley, I think, is almost guaranteed. If you don't, unless they book it tomorrow night, and I wouldn't, the way Beth was talking on NXT when they asked her about it, it almost seems like that they want to push this out. You have enough dates for Edge. You can put him on the Saudi show. The Saudis are going to want him there anyways. It makes a whole lot more sense to do that match there, to give the fans who don't want to watch because it's a Saudi pay-per-view and all the terrible things that are involved with Saudi pay-per-views. It gives them a reason why they might have to watch.
It gives them a lot more edge to it, pardon the pun.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think that match gets pushed forward more, Kev, or what do you see coming out of Extreme Rules to get to Crown Jewel?
I think Ed hit it right on the button. I think it does make more sense for Seth Edge to finish their feud at Saudi and just start it with that. So us people that only are watching the Saudi pay-per-view for 1 or 2 matches can tune out for the rest of it. Because they don't matter, but that match would be awesome because they've had great matches so far. Definitely think Lashley Big E gets added to Extreme Rules after everything that happened on Monday and that amazing triple threat. It's hard to argue that Lashley doesn't deserve a rematch against Big E after the whooping he put on everybody in that match.
And by the way, I think that one's going to be a chairs match if it does get added.
I would agree with that, yeah.
Somebody's going to get bruised and battered. Why not, right?
Might as well.
Both of them.
Let them freaking go at it each other. So we're going to give Kev here some teachings and stuff like that. So this is going to be a little off kilter since I have Ed on and we could talk about Massachusetts stuff all day. Why not? Why don't we give Kev an idea what certain words in Massachusetts lingo means, but we'll also talk about wrestling around here and a lot of famous people that are now in WWE and AEW, or both of them have pretty much gone through one wrestling promotion around here. So, so the word Kev will teach you is one thing. Do you know what a packy is?
I've heard it before, but nah.
Ed?
That would be the liquor store.
Do you know what a bubbler is?
No.
Me and Rob Wilkins, we talked about making a list of this stuff, and actually him asking me this stuff. It's a water fountain.
Yeah.
There's certain terminologies around here. Do you know what a rotary is?
Yes.
Okay, what is it?
Wait, are you talking about the rotary tool, or is it something different?
Something different.
Right, then no.
It's a roundabout.
Yeah.
The traffic circles.
Got it.
Yeah. It's the same way people ask us to say ka, ha, and all that stuff. It's the same way like we're watching a promotion. Go check out Chaotic Wrestling, by the way. A lot of famous wrestlers have gone through there. Tommaso Ciampa being one and stuff like that.
Kofi Kingston.
Yeah. Mercedes KV, other known as Sasha Banks. So, what is since the wrestling style up here is different, and how is it like the independent promotions down there, Kevin, differ compared to up here? Because
I honestly never really got to go to a lot of indie wrestling events. The only one I ever got to go to was Northeast Wrestling, and when they did a free event at Six Flags in Jersey, and Moxley was on that match. That was when Cass and Enzo first came back together. Darby Allin was on that one.
That was a hell of
Private
a show.
Party. Like it was a stacked show. Foley, my wife got kissed by the boogeyman on that show.
Go Teresa.
And speaking of, we're just going to give
the only indie I've really gotten to, and it was awesome, and I would love to get to more, but just don't have the time anymore.
And a free plug for Northeast Wrestling again. Their next show up in Connecticut, where they run their most of their shows out of. This thing is stacked. It's MJF, it's Will Ospreay, it's Matt Hardy, it's Private Party. I mean, this thing is fantastic. And apparently Will Ospreay is wrestling. Not only is he there with with his IWGP title, that I think he's going to have his own title for the photo ops. But more importantly than that, I think he's actually in ring wrestling.
Which is going to be interesting because he doesn't go out of the States that much. He doesn't come here as much. So, I mean, I think being around here, Chaotic's pretty much it. It's like one of the best promotions from top to bottom. A lot of people come through there. A lot of people have been trained there. Kofi, like you said, Sasha, Tommaso is from Massachusetts. Like so many people. I mean, and one of their major influences, I think, is Kowalski. I mean, Kowalski himself is just God sent. Like, I asked JPJ this too on Tuesday. Who is like the number one godfather of? We'll kind of ask it in a different way, but what is who do you think is the godfather of New England wrestling? It's the same way of asking Kev, who do you think is the godfather of wrestling in Philadelphia? I mean, in PA and stuff.
See, I'm originally from Bethlehem, PA, so I think I'm supposed to say The Rock, seeing as I did watch him play football from my baby stroller when he played football with my cousin.
Yeah, that's fun.
It's a fun little thing to say.
Yeah, I know, right? You know how many times I can't say anything like that? I remember I remember Sasha wrestling at Lalatcher Park, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they showed a picture of her in front of it during the documentary. Chaotic used to run stadium wrestling periodically, and they did a few of them, and she was there. So, I mean, but for me, I think Kowalski's the godfather. People think, you know, Cena is one of those guys that actually is the best one out there and stuff. So, I mean, we'll see. It's interesting to see how far these people have gone and have gone through. Go check out the Chaotic archives, by the way, on YouTube. There's a lot of good matches on there, and maybe one day I could just sit on Twitch and just watch them like everybody else does. But I think my favorite one so far that I've seen is Sasha versus Allison Ray. I think that is. There was an I Quit match at the Polish Club in Lowell that they did, and she won by wrapping the television cord around her face and stuff like that. So, I mean, what's your favorite match, like indie match from Massachusetts?
Favorite indie match from Massachusetts. I saw Alberto Del Rio versus Matt Hardy versus Rey Mysterio. That one was really good. I know it's WWE heavy, but it was all three guys on the indie circuit working a match, and it's just they have such chemistry, the three of them together. As much as a dirtbag as Del Rio was that night and in life, but it's a fantastic little match.
It makes a difference, and even going to one pay-per-view or one match, it changes everything. So we'll get this ended up a little early. I want to thank Ed, who is literally an amazing dude, to come on here. Kev, I missed you, bud. It's
been a while, man.
So tell them where they can find you, Ed.
So you can find me at edfries12584 on the Twitter. You can find me on Saturday. I'll be teaming up with Spencer against Parrish and Astrid as we do Wrestle Draft. We'll be mock drafting the WWE 2021 draft. I went through and got every listed of any talent who's been on television in the past year who is not a legend making sporadic appearances, with the exception of Brock Lesnar, as I threw him in because he's current as opposed to Cena, who's just finished up his run. And then you can always also catch me every Tuesday night as part of a double feature with Power Out, where we have NXT, where we spill the tea on NXT. And nice. You can find all of that at lovewrestling.com/twitch.com/lovewrestlingca.
Yeah, go check out the Love Wrestling stuff. Actually, Between Two Beards is on right now too.
They are,
and they Plug Oak ended up turning around and said, "You're taking one of our guys to counter program us." Plug Oak.
He thinks he's the flagship show. Well, if he's so flagship, then I shouldn't matter if I go somewhere else for the night.
It's funny because he signed a contract with Wicked Crazy Pinfalls, and he hasn't. He's only honored it maybe Kev? Maybe 5% of that contract, man.
That's about right. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, "Oh, I'll be on," and then stuff, and then we changed to Thursdays. Now there's a private conversation going on about, and I'll tell everybody, there is a conversation of moving the show again for schedule reasons, because a lot of people can't do the show depending on certain times. So there's conversations about maybe moving it again just to help people be flexible and be able to come on. So, and especially now that my schedule's changed completely and I have Sundays off, I might even consider doing some Sunday shows here and there just to be sporadic and stuff like that. Kev, tell them where they can find you, man.
Find me on Twitter at Kevin's_Temple, just like it is on the screen. And basically, it's the only show I do. I'd love to get my own show, but I'm just trying to think of some ideas, and I got to find a co-host. So got to figure that out.
It goes both ways, dude. I mean, I don't mind doing a lot. I was even telling my girlfriend the other day, I want to keep busy doing this stuff because this stuff here, I love doing. Like, I love doing the behind the scenes stuff. I like being on camera, talking to you guys and stuff like that. That's why I always tell people, if you have a spot, I'm down to do it. I want to have fun, and I love being in front of this because when I'm working, I'm extremely stressed. I'm overtired. I'm work so many hours. And then here, it's just I get to have fun and talk to people who are like-minded, or like Ed's in the area. You know, one day we'll hang out and we'll talk about this in person. But it's fun stuff to do, and it's not a lot of people who can understand it. So other than that, you know, go check out Fightful. Go check out Between Two Beers and Love Wrestling. You know, I will be back again next week. We got like a prediction show coming up for Crown Jewel, for Christ's sakes. We've got so many matches in this tournament. Your wife even I
was
think
an eerie
I
timing.
figured she'd want to talk wrestling, but we can talk when you're out of the shower.
Well, I mean,
That's a way to end the show.
No, we'll end this at this. Do a good deed, pay for it. Tell wifey who your opponent is, because that household, to quote a line from Seth Rollins, is probably going to be burning it down in this tournament. So,
I am so sure I am going to beat her in the tournament that if she beats me, I'm going to shave off my beard so she still loses because she'd be pissed.
And No Shave November's coming. So if that happens and you have to shave that off, we will pull a Wrestle Talk and you will have to do it live.
I would do it live on the air.
Yeah, I would want Anakin here for that, just because that'd be fun. Other than that, guys, just have a good one.
There's the comment I was waiting for.
Yeah. I think, my friend, that, you know,
You scare our baby.
I think he kind of just said that now on camera, and I'm sorry, but it's official. That I'll take that as a official thing. Other than that, before she starts going off on me, do a good deed, pay for it. Have a good night, guys. Bye.